Well, it's actually more than 10 minutes from when I told you before. I let it dry a little bit more and set up a little bit more. So more like 20 minutes. So you know, the 20 on that bag, that's pretty close for little patches like this. Now, funny thing, you'll see that this side is still darker than this side. As you remember, I haven't put any mud on this side. I only put the mud over here. Now, with regular sheetrock mud, you have to let it dry all the way to how it looks like this, because then that will have meant it shrunk all that it could. Now, with this stuff here, it's not going to shrink. And the good thing about this is you can put a second coat over there. I'm gonna mix up some here pretty quick. I'm gonna put some over the top of that, and I'm gonna get rid of lots of those little ridges and indentations in there and make it a lot smoother than what it is. But I can do that even when it still has moisture in it, because it's still plenty hard for me to put that second coat over now. You see what I mean? That's why I call it quickset. It sets quick. And that means, what does that mean for you and for me? That means we can do our sheetrock patches that much quicker. We don't have to wait until the next day to put the next coat on, because if this was regular sheetrock mud, all-purpose joint compound, if I would have put that on there, first off, I would have to let this dry, and more than likely I'd have to let it dry probably overnight, or maybe 8 or 9 hours before I put another coat on there to satisfy the thought that it's not going to shrink anymore. And then that next coat's got to dry, and all the moisture is going to have to be out of it. So this little patch, it could take me feasibly 2 days or more before I'm ready to even put the paint on. Well, because I'm using this quickset, I can put 2 layers of quickset on there in less than an hour and have that all ready. Then I can put my regular sheetrock mud on there. When I do that, I'll put regular sheetrock mud over the top of this. I'll do this patch here too, and some other things. Then I'll let it dry overnight and let it harden up and cure properly, so that the following morning, I can go and sand that. So, you know, this patch, could I prime it? Could I prime it and paint it today too? Very unlikely, and I wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend doing all your sheetrock patching first, like small things like this, in one day. Then the next morning you can sand it, and then you can prime it and paint it and finish it with 2 coats of finish paint and all that in one day for that. Okay, don't try to do your entire project in one day, because let me tell you, it's very difficult to do that, especially if you don't know what you're doing. And when you get all done, 99.9% of the time, it's going to look like a patch. Oh yeah, it's going to look pretty good, but it's not going to look as good as it could. Here's another important reason why I don't want you priming and painting this patch until the next day. After you put the final sheetrock mud on and you have that sanded, you need to have it dry enough so that you can sand it, and it needs to cure all the way. If you still have moisture in your patch and you start installing primer and then you install your finished paint over that, once it dries, it could change the color of your paint ever so slightly, because this patch isn't dry yet, the sheetrock mud. Do you see what I'm saying? And you may soak up that paint in such a way to where it's not going to blend in the paint everywhere else. Now that could be a possibility, and I want you to sand your patches when you get all done. I don't want you just putting regular sheetrock mud over here, and once it's smooth and fairly dry to the touch, you go ahead and paint right over there. You've got to get that sanded, because then that helps close up any pores, and also makes the consistency of your wall, your surrounding wall area, the same. You don't want, if this is rough but it's smooth and all this has been sanded and smooth, when you paint that, you're going to see the patch that way too, because of just the contour of your sheetrock mud not being smooth. You follow? Think about all that stuff when you're doing your patches.